Good afternoon, everybody, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thank you for giving us some of your time. Today is going to be the spoiler review for Joker, and I'm sorry I'm a little behind the times on this one, but I had some technical issues trying to film a review with Aaron, so I'm going to do it solo so we can get something up here and let you guys know what I think. I want to remind everybody that this is a spoiler review. We do not do non-spoilers in this channel, so we're going to be saying some things about the Joker. If you don't want to hear them, you might want to pause this, go run out to your local theater real quick, catch the movie, and then come back and watch this because we're going to spoil a lot of stuff about Joker. But there we go. Now, I want to start off with the characters. First off, Joaquin Phoenix was brilliant. He is absolutely fantastic in this movie. I'll go into that more later. Another one I want to talk about is Zazie Beetz is Sophie Drummond, the neighbor that he kind of develops a crush on. I don't think she was utilized nearly enough. I don't think her character was written great, although she performed it very, very well. I don't think she was given nearly enough screen time. She wasn't given a big enough role. I thought she really shined when she was allowed to, and that was only really 2 points in the movie. But other than that, I thought she was fantastic. Robert De Niro is Robert De Niro. He's probably one of the best actors of a generation. He's easily one of the top 5 ever, arguably maybe the best ever, depending on who you talk to. He was just typical De Niro. Going over the plot real quick, it's basically a broken man in a broken environment. He is obviously mentally disturbed, which is strike one. He's not in a very good environment. This Gotham that they're portraying in this movie is, I guess, it would be like a modern day Detroit. It's just a city with not a lot of prospects, not a lot of industry, not a lot of opportunity, and everybody there has got a very negative view on what's going on in the world, in the immediate environment surrounding them. And I think that because of that, they tend to be very negative towards the people around them. And one of those people is this guy, Arthur Fleck, Phoenix's character. So he's always on the verge of losing his shit. And a couple of things that happen is what really push him over the edge. Over the course of this movie, he actually has the first act of violence in the movie that he commits. Is he actually has to defend himself against against 3 guys that are trying to beat his ass on the subway train. He kills 2 of them in self-defense with a gun, and then the other guy, he chases him down and executes him, which I thought was pretty interesting because he went from self-defense to execution pretty quickly. Something about killing people is what made him feel good, and that's kind of what sets him off down his path. The unforeseen effect of killing the guys in the subway is that it makes him feel good. It gives him a positive feeling. It gives him a sense of belonging, it gives him a sense that he did something right. And I think that's what pushes him down this path of wanting to be destructive. Not necessarily a killer, but be destructive. Moving on down the line, he ends up killing his mother. I don't know if it's a mercy killing or if he just wants to be out from under the burden of having a mother who herself has got a lot of mental problems, who has health problems. It doesn't really say which one it is, but it could go either way. I personally think it was because he wanted to be out from under the burden of having to care for someone else. But it was a pretty interesting moment in the movie because it seemed to be the final thing that pushed him down this path to darkness. The one thing I don't understand is why people have gotten on this movie for the level of violence. I got to be honest, I've seen war movies with way, way more violence than this film, and they don't catch nearly the shit for violence that this film did. Now, the violent parts are violent. They are a special kind of violence. They are personal violence. But it's not so much that we haven't seen in other movies. I don't understand why some people were freaking out over this movie the way that they did. I just didn't get it. Some of my likes about the movie are obviously Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of Arthur Fleck. This was Daniel Day-Lewis-like acting from this guy. It is a perfect character study into mental illness, how your environment can affect how you deal with that kind of thing. He really it was an absolute home run that he hit. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he was at least nominated as best actor for this. He may or may not win. I don't know. There's still a lot of movies coming out the next couple of months for Oscar season, but him getting nominated wouldn't be outside their own possibility. One of the things I disliked about this movie, look, I'm gonna state a very unpopular opinion right now. This is not a comic book film. They didn't give it any connective tissue to a larger comic book kind of universe until the last few minutes when you see the Waynes get killed. And it seemed like that was kind of forced. It seemed like that was put in there just so they can say, hey, look, everybody, we made a comic book movie. Nah, it's not a comic book movie. This movie, they should have just let this movie be what it was for most of the movie, a good character study into this guy who slowly slipped into madness. By trying to by showing us towards the end of the movie the Waynes getting killed in the alley in front of Bruce, it's just like, you threw that in there because you just wanted to have the clout of saying you made a comic book movie, and it didn't really fit. You should have left that out. You should have concentrated on what drove this guy mad. If you really wanted it to be a standalone Joker movie, you should have left that out and just let Joaquin Phoenix do his thing and tell his story, and not worried about the larger comic book stuff. Having Thomas Wayne running for mayor was one thing. I feel like that's something that could have happened in the background, and you not put so much emphasis on. At least not have his character placed a prominent role. But whatever. I think that part worked out okay in the end. But forcing in those comic book references at the end to try to give it some connective tissue between the comic book stories that we know just seemed really forced and didn't fit to me. Some of the things another thing I disliked about this, obviously, was that it's not really a comic book movie. But also, they for a half a second in this movie start to give you the impression that Arthur Fleck is actually Bruce Wayne's illegitimate half brother. And I swear to God, when they started to introduce that, the first thing that popped into my mind was Austin Powers and Doctor Evil being brothers. It was so goofy and just it didn't need to happen like that. Now it ends up not being the case, of course. It turns out that his mother was crazy and she used to work for the Waynes and she had developed this whole psychotic thing of her own about how she'd had an affair with Thomas Wayne and he was the result of their sort of affair. And of course, that ended up not being the case. It turns out that they're not related at all. But just the fact that you threw that in there really kind of annoyed me and took me out of the movie a little bit. But, I'll be honest. I mean, if I have to give this thing something out of 5 stars, I'll give it a 4. I mean, it's a really great character study. It's a lot of heavy dialogue. If you are going in there hoping to see a lot of violence, you're not getting it. This movie's just not really that violent. The violence that happens is pretty personal violence. But it's not constantly him walking around killing people. It's an interesting character study, like I said, about a man who slowly slips into madness because he's surrounded by a world that is mad. And, just go in there and watch this movie and watch him deal with his mental illness, watch him deal with his mother's mental illness, watch him deal with a world around him that at some level or another is mentally ill, not unlike the world we seem to live in today. Yeah, go see the movie. But anyway, that's my time. Thanks, you guys, for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.